Welcome to the Year of the Movie podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies from the year of the movie 2023.
Yeah.
We're your hosts.
Yeah.
I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
So we talk about movies from 2023 because 2023 was a weird year for movies. 80 for Brady, 65, Strays, George Foreman,
Air.
etc.
Yeah.
And if you like this podcast, consider supporting us on Patreon and following us on Instagram at Virtual Cocktail.
And rating and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts. All those things are helpful.
Yeah.
Today, we're talking about the movie Tetris.
We are talking about Tetris, and if you're an audience member going, oh yeah, I forgot there was a Tetris movie, you're not alone.
That's how most people have felt about it.
Yeah.
At least the ones that you've talked to in the past couple of days. If you don't know, the synopsis of the Tetris movie is video game designer Hank Rogers seeks to secure global rights for Tetris. This specified 1984. I don't know if there's a legal thing. Legal things with Tetris are interesting. Yeah. Anyway, Tetris, leading to tense negotiations in the Soviet Union involving creators, government, and corporate intrigues. What were your first impressions when you heard about this movie? And also, how do you feel about Tetris?
It's a great game. Tetris is a great game. I enjoy Tetris quite a bit. I have a little Game Boy thing, and I'll often just play Tetris on that still.
Yeah.
My first impressions of the movie, though, I was excited because it's Taron Egerton. He's playing the main character, so I like him, and it's a movie about Tetris.
Yep.
So I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions?
I thought it looked interesting. I thought that I remember watching the trailer for this. I thought the trailer gave it a cool vibe of like I knew that like the Tetris origin story was difficult because we took that one class about video game history or preservation, whatever it was. I promise it did stick with me. But I didn't know the specifics of it, and I am a nerd who enjoys like legal drama. And Taron Egerton, also great.
Yep.
So, and Toby Jones.
Yes, you do love Toby Jones.
I do. So I am the target audience of this movie, except for the fact that I don't really care about Tetris the game. I've played it. It's fine. I've never understood it. Like the
Your
mania?
brain's too small
My brain is too smooth.
for Tetris.
Law goes in, blocks go out. Yeah.
I think it's just a fun, simple puzzle game.
It is.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's not more than that.
I know. And it's fine.
You people.
So the trailer for this movie, not going to do a big breakdown like we have done in the past because it pretty much sets up what the movie is about. However, this is a much more simplified version of the story than what the movie shows. It just sets up basically that Nintendo needs the rights to this new game called Tetris, and this guy has to go to the USSR to get it done. It makes it seem like he's in Moscow for much longer than he actually is in terms of like screen time in the film. And this version, like this streamlined version that the trailer sets up, is probably actually closer to what happened in real life, and we'll get into that later. The graphics say it's based on a true story. It's set to techno music and The Final Countdown, so that's a great vibe. And it currently has 8.3 million views on YouTube, which I feel like is one of the higher view counts of the trailers that I haven't kept track, but it's just like
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. I remembered people talking about this like on my part of the internet when this movie was first announced, and then I guess the same thing happened of like, oh, I forgot that came out.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the cast?
Talk about the cast. Taron Egerton, like we said, is Hank Rogers. Sophia Lebedeva
Mm-hmm.
is Sasha. Nikita Efremov is Alexei Pajitnov.
Pajitnov, I think.
Pajitnov. Roger Allam is Robert Maxwell. Anthony Boyle is Kevin Maxwell. Ayani Nagabuchi is Akimi Rogers. Oleg Stefan is Nikolai Belikov. Ben Miles got that one down. Howard Lincoln. Ken Yamamura is Minoru Arakawa. Igor Grabazov is Valentin Trifonov. Toby Janone is Robert Stein.
Yep. Good job with those names. Yeah, I think everyone basically is covered in the plot breakdown. So we'll get into who all of those people are. This is a bigger plot breakdown just because there's a lot of details in this plot of like the stuff that makes things dramatic. So this might be too much. We'll go through it. In 1988, Hank Rogers of Bulletproof Software learns about Tetris at a trade show in Las Vegas. Hank learns about Tetris's origins, and he tells his bank manager everything he knows in a series of short scenes. Robert Stein, from Andromeda Software, went to the USSR and obtained the worldwide licensing rights from Elorg, where Tetris originated. Stein then signed a contract with British media tycoon Robert Maxwell and his son Kevin Maxwell, CEO of Mirrorsoft. That is how he introduces himself every time.
Yep.
Mirrorsoft can distribute Tetris in exchange for royalties for Stein. Hank Rogers gets rights to Tetris in Japan for PC, console, and arcade. Hank gets a deal with Nintendo and begins production on the game. He also had to put up everything he owns as collateral to the bank to get money for all of this to happen, something his wife Akemi is supportive of and very cautious about. She is the chief financial officer for Bulletproof Studios. After Bulletproof begins Tetris production, Hank gets a call from Kevin Maxwell, CEO of Mirrorsoft, saying that they can't make the arcade games, that Mirrorsoft sold the rights to Sega. Nintendo sends Hank to Nintendo of America in Seattle, who show him their new device, the Game Boy. Hank convinces Nintendo to bundle Tetris with the Game Boy, promising to get the handheld game rights. Rogers goes to London to see the Maxwells and Stein for handheld rights, who tell him Stein has all the worldwide distribution rights. Rogers offers Stein $25,000 for handheld rights, which Stein accepts. However, later Nintendo America calls Rogers and says Stein now offered rights to Atari for $100,000. Hank decides that the only way to clear everything up is to go to Moscow and work with Elorg directly. He arrives and meets Sasha, who acts as his translator. Hank is warned about the risks he's taking just being in the USSR on a tourist visa, but goes to Elorg anyway. Hank meets Elorg chairman Nikolai Belikov, who tells him Hank's copy of Tetris is illegal because Elorg only gave PC rights to Stein. Meetings begin to happen as Hank tries to convince the USSR he didn't steal from them. Meanwhile, Stein and Kevin Maxwell have also come to the USSR to try and get rights for themselves. Each are trying to convince Belikov to sign their own deal, but Hank is also showing them the flaws in the contract they signed with Stein, which gave them a bad deal. Belikov redefines the terms of the contract on Hank's advice and has Stein sign a new deal, and Stein doesn't notice these changes. Hank also meets Alexei Pajitnov during this process, the Elorg employee who created Tetris. They become friends and even create improvements on the game together. During all of this, Valentin Trifonov of the Central Committee of the Communist Party gets interested in the amount of money various people want for this deal. He aligns himself with Kevin Maxwell, basically saying he wants a bribe to get the deal through. Kevin refuses, but his father, Robert, secretly agrees. Due to Valentin's pressure with the KGB, Belikov has to give the rights to Mirrorsoft, even though it'd be for less money for Russia. Mirrorsoft has to pay $1 million within a week. The KGB also threatens Alexei and Hank's families to let things go. Also, Sasha was a KGB agent.
What?
Mirrorsoft partners with Nintendo America, pushing Hank out of his deal and leaving him with nothing. Atari also announces their own version of Tetris, putting more pressure on this licensing deal. Alexei and Belikov put themselves at risk and get a fax to Hank with Mirrorsoft's deal. Hank realizes Mirrorsoft never paid the $1 million, so they don't have the rights. He gets Nintendo America reps to go back to Moscow with him. Robert and Kevin Maxwell also go to Moscow to try and convince Mikhail Gorbachev to give them the rights. Although he's friends with Robert, he wants the deal with more money for his country. Gorbachev also learns that Valentin is interested in these deals and wants him surveilled. Nintendo offers Elorg $5 million for console and handheld rights, and Elorg accepts. The Maxwells keep trying to stop the deal, but it's revealed they don't have any money. Alexei tells Hank and the reps they aren't safe until they leave Moscow, rushing them to the airport. There's a car chase scene as Valentin and the KGB try to stop them. Hank and Nintendo barely manage to get away. Rogers gets home and Tetris is released to massive success. Right before the USSR collapses, he manages to get Alexei and his family out of the country. Also, that one communist guy gets arrested for bribery or corruption, whatever it is. There are real-life images of the various characters with epilogue facts about them. Hank and Alexei are good friends and went on to start the Tetris company together. Hank's daughter Maya is now the CEO. Robert Maxwell's media empire crumbled, and he died under suspicious circumstances. Kevin was arrested for various charges, but was never convicted. And Stein continued to license games, he never got over losing Tetris. That's all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That pretty much covers it. So, good episode. We'll see you next week. Yeah.
Thoughts?
I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
Thought it was fun.
That's a good thought.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, something that we said after watching it was that, like, we were, like, it's a good enough movie where you're bummed it's not better.
Yeah.
Like, it's close to being, like, a real solid movie, I think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think it just kind of lands in the, it's good, it's fun category.
Yeah. It's, like, it's an easy watch. The graphics especially help keep you engaged because they do a lot of 8-bit stuff and like showing where Hank is in the world on a map and like his flight path and stuff, or introducing characters and having like their little video game version of themselves. And it splits up the movie into chapters, but it does like level 1, level 2, level 3, and then at the end it says congratulations. And so like that stuff is fun. I think like I would say it's rewatchable. It's, I don't know, it's not quite, it could almost be like, it's almost there.
Yeah, and I think a main issue is pacing and editing. I think the beginning has some weird editing and ways they're telling the story, because like the beginning is an exposition dump of Hank talking to his bank.
Yeah.
And so like he's talking to the bank, and then they show flashbacks of like the exposition, and it doesn't feel like it's super necessary, and it feels like here's what you need to know. And I feel like it could have just been text at the beginning, like especially like a video game style of like the like that kind of thing where it's like, and then it's like it goes to the next one or whatever.
It's almost economical because like the stuff that makes the story compelling is like how complicated all the moving pieces are, of like everything needed to be a little messed up at every stage for Hank to be able to have done all of this, at least the way that the movie talks about events.
Yeah.
So like that is interesting, of like treating it as like an underdog story on a global scale.
Yeah.
But it's just because it starts you like right in the middle of Hank doing all of this, then like the exposition dump at the beginning was like, you need to know all of these context pieces in order to understand what this guy is trying to do. It also sets up like the financial trouble that he's already in and the huge risk that he's taking. And then the 8-bit graphics are good, like they're visually interesting, but also it felt like that pace was like stuttering because it paused to have a slide of like each character come up, and that was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. No, we're not. Almost.
I feel like the movie could have started with him at the trade show in Vegas, and it's like, oh, here's this guy. He's trying to sell his video game.
Mm-hmm.
He's not successful.
Yeah.
So, like, no one's interested in his game. That means he has no money.
Mm-hmm.
He's a struggling game developer.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, what's this at the same game show? Tetris? And then he's like, oh, do you have the rights in Japan?
Mm-hmm.
And then it could go to the banker, like if you really needed to.
Yeah.
But I don't even then I don't know if it's super necessary.
I don't know if the banker is necessary.
Because like they show the banker again at the very end playing Tetris on a Game Boy,
Yeah.
but that's it. It's not
Yeah.
like you're like going.
I know, like because he is so screen time heavy up top, then I was like, oh, they also named him, like, this is Eddie the bank manager, and
Yeah.
they have a friendly relationship in the way that you do when you can easily get loans in the 80s. But like
He doesn't show up later on putting pressure on Hank, reminding him that he owes the bank money.
yeah,
It's all like Hank is like, I'm out of money. This is all I have left. You
right.
gotta help me.
Yeah. So like yeah, I don't know if that was necessary, but also I do think it's important to have all of these characters introduced instead of Hank meeting all of them along the way. So then, like, I don't know how else you would set all of that up. The other thing that we talked about, like, after watching it was this feels like it would have made a good miniseries,
Yeah.
because then you don't have to worry so much about setting up the pacing for everything. You can take longer to establish Hank and his family and what he wants to do, and like going to this trade show and then being like, oh my god, moving
Yeah.
blocks.
They definitely crammed too much into a movie. And I have a feeling that if you pitched a mini series about Tetris,
Mm-hmm.
it probably wouldn't sell well. I think if it was
Yeah.
still the Marv Group which made this movie, if
Mhm.
they had still pitched it as a miniseries, I feel like they probably would have gotten some attention, especially on Apple TV where this movie premiered
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Like I think it could have been done, but there's just too much. And then because there's so much, it doesn't fully develop those things like the family
Yeah.
where in scene to scene the number of kids Hank and his wife have
It fluctuates.
just varies.
So like they established like very clearly that they have 4 kids.
Yeah.
Like Hank and Alexei talk, or like they when they're trying to get to know each other, then Hank shows him photos of his family. And like before that we had seen 2 to 3 children around Hank.
You never see the fourth
never
child
see the fourth
outside of
child.
the picture.
Yeah. So like he was like flipping through the photos from his wallet, and he was like, and this is Maya and this is
The other
other
one?
children. And then it was like, oh, and then he has a son, and then he like flips and he's like, and that's my son, and then there's this guy, and then
Yeah.
then like he has 4 kids and 2 girls and 2 boys, and it's just like, oh, where's that other kid? And then every time that Akemi walks in with a kid, or like into their apartment, then she's only really got Maya with her. I was like, where are your other children?
Yeah.
Is someone watching them? Which, like, it does, because Maya is the new CEO of the Tetris company. She's also one of the executive producers on this movie. So, like, I get, if you gotta pick one kid to highlight, you're gonna pick that one.
Yeah, you'll pick the favorite.
Pick the one who's making the movie happen. But it was just like, don't edit out the kids, because like that's a weird choice to make.
Yeah.
But like,
Unless they like wanted to.
I don't know.
It just is weird.
which is, you know, if she walks in, show all of them, or like just have background noise of children being in the apartment, and maybe she needed to run an errand with just Maya or something.
Yeah.
Like whatever, I don't know. Yeah, Hank's family being around is just a little bit clunky because of the number of kids fluctuating, but also because Akemi like isn't fully developed. She is around for like the first 15 minutes of the movie as like a background character, but or like she's on the periphery of the story. And then as he goes to Russia, then she's kind of pushed aside. So like she's the chief financial officer of the company that they have together. Um, they established like Hank loves his wife and like they're close in that way. But then they also have this tension point of like he's trying to build this business, he's taking massive risks. All of their collateral is in on this deal happening. So there's a lot going on. He misses Maya's concert and like that's a whole thing. Um but like if she's in charge of the finances of the company, then like I feel like she would have had more involvement. I don't know. It's just like she's really just pushed to the side with everything.
Yeah.
And she's in it just enough at the beginning. Also like the bank manager where I was like, I expected you to be around a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
A little bit. But
I like the chase sequence.
mm-hmm.
I was talking about this in our other Toby Jones featured movie that we've talked about on this podcast, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
And Indiana Jones and Toby Jones.
Yep. The car chase sequence in that film looks terrible.
Yeah.
And my initial thought with that one was like, it's like, because it's not a real chase scene, it's all like CGI and like done in a studio, that they're just like not showing off like as much as you could in a real practical chase scene. But this one was also CGI. It's like, it's not good enough where you can't tell it's not CGI.
There are those specific shots of like people in the car where you can the lighting is like just precise enough inside the car and like the background moving that you're like this is on the set or whatever.
But it still looked so much better than Indiana Jones that I'm just like, why with Disney budget did it look so bad?
Yeah.
And like this one, it was fun. It was done well. I mean, the Marv production company like that, they do good action sequences because they do the Kingsman movies and all of that.
And Argyle, which we talked about a while ago.
So like I wasn't surprised, but it was still just like this movie doesn't have Indiana Jones budget, and it's still doing like a fun chase sequence, and it incorporated some of like the 8-bit graphics in that. So like when people like crashed, it had like it flash red and pixely or whatever. And I thought that was nice, and that was actually something that I wish they had somehow incorporated more, because like that moment was very Scott Pilgrim-esque, but there weren't really any of those other kind of Scott Pilgrim looking moments in the rest of the film outside of showing like a full screen pixel graphic or whatever.
They also at the beginning, then Hank is talking to the bank manager Eddie, and he says like, I played for 5 minutes and I still see the blocks falling, which is like Tetris hypnosis is a thing that people see. So like then they have the blocks falling around him, and that's a line and everything that's in the trailer for the movie too. So like, yeah, I expected the blocks or like falling blocks to be around more, and it's not really. They have the full screen graphics of like introducing characters, and then the Hank traveling around like that in the 8-bit style, and then when there are location shifts, like mostly in the USSR, like then when they have that establishing shot, then they go to the 8-bit and then it will fade into the real life. But like even that, another thing that we said after watching it was like the architecture that you think of when you think of USSR right before it fell is like very, very brutalist, very blocky. I think you could have leaned into it a bit more in a interesting way of like the Tetris blocks being incorporated more around, and then it's like kind of a subtle thing of like this is always in his head, but meh. Yeah. It has a good soundtrack.
It does.
I feel like this is a good example of the movies that we have talked about recently of like they pick popular songs or like well-known songs, but it doesn't really have a cohesive vibe. This has a cohesive vibe. It's got songs like Opportunities, Let's Make Lots of Money, Final Countdown, Holding Out for a Hero in Japanese and in Russian, and then the Tetris theme is reworked. It's like that kind of stuff. People know Final Countdown.
Yeah.
People know Holding Out for a Hero, but
They
like,
also
the versions of them fit this thing more.
the chase scene, like they sync it with the music better,
Yeah.
and in a way that like isn't, oh, there's a fight happening also while whatever the, oh my god,
The
Uptown Funk
yeah.
while that
Yeah.
song is playing.
Yeah, if I think of
Bruno Mars, there it
yeah,
is.
fight scene, I don't think of Bruno Mars as
Yeah.
my go-to soundtrack, but yeah, I think that's just probably another thing of because Marv was involved in this, then they know action sequences.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else about this movie that we want to talk about?
No.
Cool. Production facts.
Production facts.
So this movie was released, that's one fact. It premiered at the South by Southwest Festival on March 15th, 2023, and released on Apple TV Plus March 31st, 2023. It has an hour and 58-minute runtime, and it's rated R. I kind of wonder, because it was released in March, that's far enough away in people's minds that they're like, if they hadn't gotten around to watching it yet, then
Yeah.
they're not going to search for it. That's unfortunately how streaming services work sometimes.
And it's Apple. And
Yeah.
Not everyone really has Apple.
It's got an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes with an 87% audience score, 61 out of 100 on Metacritic, and I think it had like a 7.8 or something out of 10 on IMDb. So generally well received. The Rotten Tomato critic consensus is, while it's nowhere near as addictive or fast-paced as the game, Tetris offers a fun, fizzy account of the story behind an 8-bit classic. Other reviewers specifically highlighted this soundtrack as their favorite of the year. So, pretty positive overall.
Did it make money?
I don't know.
Whoever would know.
I'm not even sure, based on just the streaming numbers, if it is considered a success. So
even everyone has forgotten this movie came out.
yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it had a budget of $80 million. I do know that. The streaming numbers, Samba TV research panel of 3.1 million smart TVs. Of those, 88,000 of those watched the movie over the first 2 days. Those aren't, like, 88,000 is a big number in terms of movies. I don't know how big that really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it did okay. The production timeline of this movie: in July of 2020, the biopic about Tetris is announced, with John S. Baird set to direct and Taron Egerton to star. Both of them worked on this movie. I feel like of the recent ones that we've talked about, that hasn't happened as much as like the people who were announced at the beginning, they actually did it.
Yeah.
Egerton confirmed this in August of 2020 and said that it would have a similar vibe to The Social Network. I don't think that's how it ended up,
No.
but
that's okay.
I get what he means.
Yeah. I do want to say I thought Taron Egerton, like always, gave a good performance.
Yeah.
He uses an American accent in this one,
Mm-hmm.
which he has done before, but this one was still different enough that I was like, oh, he's like actually,
Yeah.
he put thought into it more than just basic American accent.
Yeah. I don't know what Hank Rogers in real life sounds like, but he is from, or he's Danish?
He's Dutch.
Dutch.
He grew up in New York.
Yeah. So Dutch, New York. He went to school in Hawaii, which is where he met Akemi, and then they live in Japan together.
Yeah.
And then he travels all over the world throughout this movie. So he's like a very international guy. He also wears cowboy boots the entire time. They're very short cowboy boots.
They're dress cowboy.
They're ankle cowboy boots.
You don't want your dress pants getting caught up with the cowboy boots.
I get it, but I just like little baby cowboy boots. So I don't know what he sounds like in real life, but like pretty international dude. He's come from everywhere. So
Yeah. Back to the boots.
Yeah.
I think it's more snakeskin boots than cowboy boot.
Is there a difference?
Yes.
Okay.
Cowboy boot isn't like cowboy boots usually leather. You can have a snakeskin cowboy boot, but like this
Is this
one,
a rectangle square situation?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Snakes are rectangles.
I don't think that's true.
No, I think you pretty much nailed it on the head.
Uh-huh.
Snakes are rectangles.
Snakes are rectangles. Yeah. People call him a cowboy. At least.
Snakes?
Yeah. Yeah, they call him a cowboy in this movie.
There's a snake in my boot.
That's a direct line from this movie.
Yep.
Anyway, back to the production timeline.
Oh, right, yeah.
November of 2020, Apple TV Plus acquired the film. December of 2020, filming begins in Glasgow. They filmed at the airport there. February of 2021, filming in Aberdeen begins. They use the University of Aberdeen for LORG and also a former RAF base to kind of give like the semi-military feel of things. March of 2020, filming returns to Glasgow and then wraps sometime that month. And then sometime in 2022, reshoots happen. And then this movie was originally scheduled to come out in 2022, was pushed to 2023. I don't know why specifically that happened. It's been nominated for some awards. It was nominated for a 2023 BAFTA Scotland Award for Best Director of Fiction, 2023 South by Southwest Audience Award nominee for Headliners. I don't know what that is for specifically, but the director, John S. Baird, was listed as that, so I think it's for him. Taron Egerton was nominated for Best Actor from Hollywood Critics Association Mid-Season Awards and the Critics' Choice Super Awards. That one specifically was for Best Actor in a Superhero Movie.
Well,
yeah?
Okay.
Yeah. Wait.
I mean, there were a lot of superhero movies. Tetris,
Yeah.
maybe not one of them.
I'm glad that, like, Tetris exists in the world, but it feels weird for a biopic to say, like, Hank is a superhero.
Yeah.
But, oh well. It's a good performance and he should get recognition for it.
Yep.
Yeah. The tagline of this movie is "The game you couldn't put down, the story you couldn't make up." I like that one. Taron Egerton, Hank Rogers, Maya Rogers, Alexei Pajitnov, and the screenwriter Noah Pink are all listed as executive producers on this movie. Also Matthew Vaughn of Marv and Claudia Schiffer, who is a model from the 90s. She is now a producer. I know her as the celebrity crush that Liam Neeson's character in Love Actually has.
Oh, yeah.
And then they end up together at the end. But she and Matthew Vaughn are married, so they work together on movies. Cool. So I was like, good for Claudia. Yeah. Tetris creator Alexei Pajitnov said in a 2023 interview that the film wasn't an actual biography or recreation of what happened, but it was close enough and very right emotionally and spiritually. The filmmakers wanted to highlight the tension and brooding Rogers felt when negotiating in the Soviet Union. It sounds like most of the things in this part of the movie aren't true, and I've got more of a breakdown of the differences. And then Rogers and Pajitnov gave notes on accuracy, but also it seemed like they understood that this was a storytelling thing, not a shot-for-shot recreation of what happened to them.
Yeah.
It seems like, from what I can tell, everyone who this was about in real life is happy with this movie. So what changed, according to a Screen Rant article? The car chase never happened. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I figured.
Hank did convince Nintendo America to bundle the Game Boy with Tetris, but Game Boy had already released in Japan. The way that the movie shows this is that Hank walks into this room, he signs an NDA, they tell him that only 10 people in the world have ever seen what he's about to see, and then they show him the Game Boy. So it wasn't as big of a company secret as it was in real life. But, you know, it's dramatic in the movie. Mm-hmm. Hank's translator in real life wasn't a KGB officer, but the real Hank Rogers did describe her as fishy. He said she seemed to know where everything was and what was about to happen, and he considered that fishy. He was like, she knows where things are and the country that she lives in. But cool. um, the real Hank Rogers only went to Russia, not Seattle and London. So he took one trip, and this movie shows him going all over the world.
Yeah.
It's unclear how true the KGB/Communist Party interest was in real life and how much of Hank's personal finances were on the line. Also, in that article, it says that like Hank Rogers and Alexei Pajitnov are pretty transparent about the story, but they won't talk about some things.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Alexei and Hank became friends immediately. There wasn't a tension of like they need to learn to work together, because the Alexei in this movie is like pretty standoffish. His family has been burned by the Communist Party before. Like there's tension there, but in real life they were just like buddies immediately. So in August of 2023, there's a lawsuit about this movie.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. This is my main big fact about this. So Dan Ackerman, who is the editor-in-chief of Gizmodo, published a book called The Tetris Effect, the game that hypnotized the world in 2016. He sent a pre-publication copy to the Tetris company. Ackerman claims he was sent a strongly worded cease and desist letter by the company, that they refused to license their intellectual property for projects related to his book, and dissuaded producers who were interested in adapting it. According to Ackerman's suit, the Tetris company's CEO Maya Rogers and screenwriter Noah Pink began copying his book for their screenplay in 2017. He said that they liberally borrowed numerous specific sections and events of the book and was similar in almost all material respects to it. His book is a like historical breakdown of what happened to Tetris.
So it's not fiction?
His book isn't fiction. His book is like it's talking about all of the same stuff that this movie covers, of like how Tetris was able to like come into the world, but it's very closely tied into like the USSR element, and it's written as in the style of a Soviet spy novel. So like, yeah, the political elements are there. The lawsuit, Ackerman versus Pink, accuses Tetris Company of copyright infringement, unfair competition, and legally interfering with his business relations.
Illegally.
Huh?
You said legally.
Illegally interfering with his business relations. He is asking the court for damages equaling at least 6% of the film's $80 million budget, which is at least $4.8 million. This was filed in August of 2023. There's no updates that I can find since then, but the Tetris Company quote says that they believe the film has no merit. I find this deeply ironic that a story about the legal complications of this thing existing has created another lawsuit. And also, I'm not a legal expert, but he doesn't own this story. This isn't...
If he was just like telling a historical thing.
Yeah. This isn't about him.
Yeah.
And like the production timeline that I could find that's like, at least listed on Wikipedia of what happened says that like 2020 the film is announced. That's where it begins. But like you've got to have script development and stuff that can take 2 to 3 years before that. So like, yeah, if they did start in 2017, then like if a book comes out in 2016, of course they're not going to give you intellectual property because they're developing their own movie.
They probably already started the script.
Exactly.
Like, they probably wanted to do a movie for years. I feel like I even read something that like there was like a different Tetris idea years ago.
Yeah.
So like it's not a shock that they want to do a movie.
Your
book came out and they're like, oh, that's kind of similar to what we were already gonna do. You gotta stop.
Yeah, and then like the fact that they sent him a cease and desist is like, yeah, because they're working on their own stuff and they don't want competition.
Yeah.
Also, besides the legal stuff, just like from a personal factor, these people are still alive. Why wouldn't they want to be the ones to tell their own story?
And like, did you ask originally?
Like, he must have, because this book came out. Like, I don't know. If it's sometimes there is like the unofficial biography of blah blah blah, or like the
Yeah.
the stamp of approval. He must have like they must have known that it was coming out, because if you're researching about Tetris, you gotta talk to them.
Yeah.
But I I don't I don't think it has merit. He's suing the screenwriter and Tetris Company and Apple for all of these things. The him saying, like, specifically highlighting the CEO Maya Rogers as like, she worked on this to make this happen and to use my book, is besides the fact that like it's about her dad, then it's like, why would you assume it's the CEO of the company who is doing the thing? I don't know.
That's weird.
It's very weird. And
when you say the film has no merit, do you mean
the lawsuit?
The lawsuit? Okay.
Yeah. Liberally borrowed numerous specific sections and events of the book. It's not events of the book.
It's history.
Yeah.
Like, unless in the book it really is like, and then there is a chase scene that had these two specific people from Nintendo, and then it's like, maybe. But if it is just like, this is historically accurate what happened, then the Tetris Company can't steal its own history.
I feel like he just happened to write a thing at the same time that they were working on it, and he's upset that he got there first.
I'm guessing he probably didn't sell well, and they said no.
Yeah.
And so he's like,
I don't know about book sales, if it's done well.
Yeah.
Or anything. I don't know. I was like a little bit interested to read it, and now I'm like,
But do you want to support him?
Not especially. Yeah. So, yeah. If there's any updates, maybe I'll hear about them.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
But we always rate the movies out of 4 with 5 options. 0 out of 4 is no. Don't put the piece right there. Ah, you idiot. 1 out of 4 is it was a movie. 2 is well made or enjoyable. 3 is enjoyable and technically good. 4 is Oscar worthy. Gave it a 3 because I liked it, and it is good, but it doesn't quite get to that next level.
I also gave it a 3 because of the feeling of like, man, this is almost there. I wish it was there. But, you know, feels like a movie that I would recommend.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yay.
We talk about other movies that we've watched recently. I don't think we've watched a movie together. Outside of...
Probably not.
Yeah. But I watched No Country for Old Men.
Oh, yeah.
Thought it was fine.
Yeah.
The acting is great. There's some good looking shots. The dialogue writing's fine. I could not care more.
Less?
Or less. I couldn't care more or less about the story. And I care little. Yeah, I just kind of, I don't know. I can go for slow burn movies.
Yeah.
My attention span is not that small for movies. I just was not interested in this.
I know I've seen it. I know it's been years. I maybe watched it at one point in high school. I tried to go through the AFI top 100 films, and I tried to like start at 100 and watch all of them. I got not very far. So I think I watched it around that time. And I just kind of, I don't think that was the best way to go through them, because I was just viewing it as like checking it off a list.
Yeah.
But
I'll rewatch it eventually to like try to give it another shot.
Yeah.
But to me, Javier Bardem's performance is not enough to make that movie as critically acclaimed as it is. In his performance, fantastic. There's no argument there. But there's so much other movie. Also, um, I looked up one of those movie lists of just like what movies should I watch that are like I haven't seen. It put the movie Pixar's Coco
Mm.
like 20 spots ahead of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Coco?
That's a choice.
Coco was fine.
Yeah.
It was whatever. Above 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is like clearly where so much movie inspiration has come from, the classic boom, 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 that
Yeah.
every other movie has used since.
Mm-hmm.
Coco?
There are some benefits to Coco. I I felt icky afterwards because I watched it and I was like aware of all the emotional manipulation that was happening to like make me feel sad about stuff, and I still felt sad about the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't my favorite. My lasting impression from No Country for Old Men was like there's a lot happening that I know is going on, but I don't get the significance of it. And that's the one thing that makes me want to watch it again is be like, do I get it now?
And that's kind of why I'm like, I'll watch it again at some point.
Yeah.
Like maybe I am just not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I probably am just not getting the intended message, because when it ended, I was just like, I don't think it's over. It didn't feel finished to me. I think, and I feel like so much of it is like, just like, oh yeah, in life you don't always get things like wrapped up in a nice bow. Things don't always work out for who you think it should work out for. But this movie just like ended.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't show, and I'm sure it was done for a similar reason to what I just said, but like it doesn't show like spoilers for No Country for Old Men. It doesn't show Josh Brolin's character dying, unless I just spaced out completely and missed it. From what I remember,
just too busy thinking about Coco.
Yeah, they just like they show the sheriff show like he gets to a hotel and he finds dead Josh Brolin, and it's like bummer. And so it's just like I get it. You're not gonna see everything in life. Things do just happen. It just, I don't know.
Not emotionally satisfying?
No.
Yeah. It's been a while, but I watched the movie Election without you. That's
Matthew Broderick, Reese
Witherspoon. It's interesting. It's got some good bits in it. It's got some bits that don't age well.
Teacher-student relations?
Yeah. Which like the stance of the movie is anti-teacher student relations.
Well,
however, this guy so it's like it's the context of Matthew Broderick's character that he sets up in these narrations is that he started working at this school, and then this guy started working at this school, and they like became friends really quickly. And this is like he says this was the type of guy who never grew up out of the phase out of high school, but he says that in a positive way. And then that guy has a relationship with Reese Witherspoon's character, and then he's caught, and he cries. And I think that's supposed to be a punchline, is like he's really emotional about the 16-year-old that he thinks he has a romantic connection with, and all of this other stuff. It just like it's icky enough watching in 2024 that I'm like, I don't get what the original joke was supposed to be here. Almost every character that's significant has a narration that goes on over their stuff. And, like, just that as a concept is funny, because it just, like, cuts in. And it's like, oh, now we're hearing from the jock's little sister? Sure, why not? And, yeah, like, it's got a lot going on. It really does the 90s-ish, 89 I think was when this came out, or
Sounds right.
I think it's 90s, but that era of movie thing of the protagonist is a man and therefore we're going to try and redeem him in some way.
Yeah.
Where Matthew Broderick, spoilers for Election, Matthew Broderick rigs a school election so that Reese Witherspoon's character doesn't win, kind of because he resents her for getting his friend kicked out of the school, but also because he's attracted to her and he's frustrated about that because he knows he can't act on it because of the thing that happened with this guy. And then at the end, then he like...
Because of that reason and no other reason.
Yeah. He gets a divorce from his wife. He starts working as a museum tour guide and like he moves to New York. He starts his life over. It seems like he's doing okay. And then he like turns the corner and he sees Reese Witherspoon like living out her dream or like her career going well because she's the aide to this senator and he sees her like getting in the limo with him. And I think the guy puts his hand on her back or something, so it implies that she's like it's also still seeing older men in power.
Yeah.
And he throws his drink at the limo, realizes, oh no, there are consequences to my action, and then sprints away, and that's how the movie ends.
Man.
Yeah.
If you have the context of that time period and you know what the joke was supposed to be in that movie,
I would love to know.
let us know.
I have listened to a full podcast episode about it already. I need more context though. But the Jock's little sister was my favorite character.
Yeah. We've also been watching a lot of West Wing. I know that's not a movie, but there was also that episode where they gave everyone the narration because they were like writing letters or whatever.
Yeah, was that a Father's Day episode?
I don't know because I fell asleep.
But they don't say anything about like Happy Father's Day. Like there's no full screen graphic or anything.
They're just like all writing letters to their dad.
They're all writing letters to their dad.
Except Josh.
Except Josh because his dad is dead, R.I.P. But he writes a letter to his mom and then he's like...
Thinking of dad.
Yeah, he's like, well, they're writing letters to their dads and I can't do that. So thank you for the shoes that you sent me.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna pretty much do it for this week's episode. Thanks for watching. If you have questions and comments, leave them and we'll respond on our other podcast, the Virtual House Sessions. But, yeah, I think that's about it. So we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.